I'm gonna be 100% honest. I tried to make this video with the help of ChatGPT because, you know, I wanted to make it a bit more structured. So I asked Chat to help me summarize the book that I'm gonna talk to you about. But after hours of back and forth and not really getting what I wanted, I was like, okay, enough. I'm just gonna do the video as I always do, so freely. So I spent a few weeks really into my thoughts. I would wake up feeling anxiety already for the thoughts that I had about some issues from the past, let's say, and thoughts about my dog that recently died, thoughts about my future. Sorry about that. Allergies. So nice. Oh no, my nose is all red. It's okay. By chance, I happened to find this book in my Kobo e-reader, and I was like, okay, let's try it. It's been amazing to read it. I devoured it. I loved it. Right now, I'm making videos just when I really feel like creating some content, and I'm making this video because this book really truly helped me, and I feel like I must share this in my channel because this channel was born to help raise awareness about animals and help people. That's my goal with this channel and in life. So I really want to share this with you. The book is this one. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go through it with you guys and just share with you the most useful tips of this book. This book from chapter 1 just gives you so much knowledge about emotions, thoughts, and about the fact that every one of us struggles with managing their thoughts, and this has been happening for forever. What I loved from the introduction is the fact that Ethan Kross says that we all need a wide range of tools to manage our emotions in all the different situations, in all the different circumstances. But what it tells us is that we actually have these tools already. It's just that maybe we don't already know how to use them, but we have those tools. And this already gives hope from the beginning of the book. Ethan Kross pushes us to answer the question, what are emotions? Give me a definition of emotions. And I can bet most of you, well, I couldn't either, wouldn't really be able to give a proper answer to this. His definition of emotions is: emotions are responses to experiences you have in the world or that you imagine happening that are meaningful to you. And already here you can understand something so important, which is emotions are responses to something that is either happening or that you imagine it's happening. Our feelings, our thoughts, our emotions don't come from the reality, but they come from what we assume of the reality and what we saw in it. That's why after a while he adds, how we think about our circumstances shapes the emotions we experience. This makes us understand how much our perspective changes how we feel. And he's gonna go back into the topic of perspective later. Before talking though about perspective, he talks about a topic that is so important to me, which is positivity. He talks about this toxic positivity that there is now around the world that is not helpful at all. And he says the absolutist view that to live your best life you need to rid yourself of negativity is a dangerous myth. I couldn't agree more. All our dark emotions, for Ethan Kross, have a light side. He explains that envy can motivate us, regret can avoid us making the same mistake other times, anger can help us respond to a threat or to an injustice, and so on. So it goes for sadness, anxiety. So he stresses out that we need to understand that both good and bad emotions are part of a healthy emotional state, and that if we accept this, we are able to accept with a lighter state of mind when we feel bad, when we feel one of those bad emotions. And that feeling guilty because we're feeling a negative emotion is part of that toxic positivity. The negative emotion is not bad itself, it's how we regulate it that it's important. The issue happens when we feel that emotion too intensely and we cannot regulate it, or we feel it for too long. That's why it talks about functional negative emotion and dysfunctional negative emotion. And the factors to understand this are, again, intensity and duration. Emotional regulation comes when we're able to lower the intensity of the negative emotion that we're feeling, and when we're able to speeding it up or slowing it down, because of course, emotional regulation also happens with good emotions too. To sum up this concept, I'm gonna read what he wrote. The goal is not to run from negative emotions or pursue only the feel-good ones, but to be able to shift, hence the name of the book. Experience all of them, learn from all of them, and when needed, move easily from one emotional state into another. He also adds, we're all born with an emotional apparatus, an instrument, but we've never been taught how to play it skillfully. Here he makes the most beautiful comparison with emotions ever. He compares our emotions with a Stradivarius. He talks about the fact that we all have this amazing instrument within us, but most of us are not taught how to play it well, and therefore we just make noise with it. While when you have the tools and the knowledge to play it correctly, you will actually make the most beautiful sounds. In another chapter, Ethan Kross dives into another beautiful concept, and he asks, do you think you can control your emotions? Well, we sort of have the answer already from the previous chapter, because we know we can have the tools to regulate them. But what he explains in this other chapter is that actually emotions are something that we can control and also cannot control. And he explains why. There is something called the trigger that actually sets off our emotional response. And we cannot control that, of course. It's an external factor. Something bad happens in front of you, an accident happens, or someone you care about is in danger. You're gonna feel fear, anxiety, stress, sadness. You cannot control that. You cannot control the trigger and your first emotional response. And how he says it is, we cannot control the world around us, and we cannot control the fact that our emotions will arise. But the second part, the part that we can control, is the trajectory. So we are capable to control how much we will feel, for how long, and where our thoughts are gonna go. And therefore, how we are gonna feel about something. To be able to do this, so to be able to be in control of the trajectory of our emotions and our thoughts, something that can help us a lot, and this is the third important topic, is the self-efficacy. Self-efficacy is the idea that if you believe you're capable of reaching a goal, that very belief plays a pivotal role in helping you reach it. A weak sense of self-efficacy, that is a lack of confidence in one's own ability to create change in a particular area of one's life, leaves a person unable to help themselves because they don't believe they can in the first place. This concept hit me hard because I've known people and I've been very close to people that lacked of self-efficacy and lacked of the belief they could reach some goals in life. A person that has been the closest to me for years, I did believe he could reach anything. He had all the capacities, but he didn't believe in himself. He didn't believe that he actually could, and he was scared of anything else that could happen because he already assumed that he would have failed. And I thought I didn't have this, but I never thought of it in the emotional state. I did realize that I'm a person that thinks of herself as a depressed and angry person, and therefore I already give up on the fact that I'm gonna be able to control my sadness and control my anger. And so this concept hit me hard because I was like, okay, Fede, you've gotta believe that you can control your sadness, that you can control your anger, that you can control when you're feeling desperate and you cannot deal with your emotions. The next crucial theme that Ethan Kross talks about is senses. The thing is, we can use the outside world to help us regulate our emotions. I know it sounds obvious, but I think we tend to forget this. We tend to forget how much the world around us, the people that we have around us, and our sensations, our senses play a huge role in how we feel. So he says that our ability to taste, see, touch, hear, and smell acts as emotional levers. And what he underlines is that sensory experiences are such a fundamental part of everyday lives and have been for so long that it's easy to forget what an effect they have on us. So we really gotta remember that our senses can be harnessed to proactively change our thoughts and emotions. And within this topic, Ethan Kross tells us something else that is very important. We, as humans, but actually every organism, tend to choose the path with the least physical and mental effort. And why knowing this is important? Because sensations are something so easy to use. So what Ethan says is that what sets sensory tools apart from many other emotion regulation tools is that they can change emotions even when you're distracted or under stress and with the least physical and mental effort. And he adds that, talking to a friend, journaling are definitely huge helpful tools, but sometimes we don't have the strength to do that. But we can have the strength to cuddle our animal, to touch the grass outside with our bare feet, to put a proper song, to change our mood. And at the end of this chapter, of this theme, he asks the readers to identify a few sensory shifters that are actually good for you and that you want to remember to use intentionally in your life. Just find the sense that helps you the most and remember those few sensory experiences that can help you change your mood. Another crucial theme that Ethan Kross talks about is the attention we give to our emotions and whether we should deal with that emotion or avoid it. And what he asks us is it possible that avoidance sometimes can be helpful? Because again, there is this wrong idea that we should always confront, express, and process our difficult feelings. Because if we don't, we'll prolong the agony and the distress. But the truth is that in recent years, studies and research are showing that turning away from a distressing situation is a core feature of an evolutionary gift that we all have, the psychological immune system. Just as our regular immune system deals with physical threats, our psychological immune system also deals with psychological threats. A person should be able to flexibly avoid and approach a problem, and therefore give his or her attention to a problem or wait for it. We have two different tools here. One is the approach and one is the avoidance. And why should we use just one? What Ethan suggests is that we should ask ourselves if the way we are dealing with the situation is helping us or not. Is what I'm doing working? Is my avoidance or approach to the problem helping me? Because sometimes approach doesn't work. And a big sign of it is that we're stuck in a negative thought loop. You get stuck on the problem, but you're not working through it. When avoidance doesn't work, it looks more like this. You want to avoid thinking of the problem, but you keep thinking about it. Well, clearly, your avoidance tool right now is not working. Or to not think of the problem, you rely on substances. It's not just drugs, it's food, sex, running from one partner to another. These are distraction methods, but they are temporary and usually harmful in the long run. If avoidance is not working, then a different tool is needed, and probably you'll have to confront the emotions that you we're trying to avoid. What Ethan also says though is that the attention tells us what we're looking at, but then there's how we look at things. And here comes the topic of perspective. So again, as said, sometimes you need to look at the problem. You cannot avoid it, you are not able to avoid it, so let's look at the problem. Let's look at your feelings, let's look at your thoughts, let's give them the attention. How do we look at them though? We can change the filter of how we look at things, and therefore change the perspective, and therefore change how we feel. You can't always change the adverse events that you experience, but you can always change how you think about it to change how you feel. And again, here you might tell me, well, thanks for the info, we all knew that, but how do I reframe? How do I change my perspective or my idea of something that is happening or that it's happened? How many times did we hear people telling us, oh, just, look at it from a different perspective. Oh, it's not how you're seeing it. And here it gives us some interesting emotional regulation tools. The first tool that it gives us is, well, if you are bilingual or more, you've got an emotional regulation app already built into your brain. Because when we speak in a second language, we are less affected by the emotional weight of words. I know this sounds strange, but I've tried it and it was actually helpful to talk about what I was going through in English rather than in my own language, which is Italian, by the way, just in case you didn't hear the accent. The other huge important tool that we have to change perspective is to use the word you. Using the word you to silently refer to yourself is called distanced self-talk. There's a huge difference between saying I am stressed out and you are stressed out. If I'm stressed out, I will feel panic, anxiety, a racing heart. But if someone else is stressed out, I might feel compassion, empathy, and a desire to soothe their nerves. By talking to myself as somebody else, I'm actually able to see and feel my situation from a different point of view. Distanced self-talk has the effect of almost splitting you. The part of you that's having the emotions and the part that's coaching you through them. Another tool to change our perspective and be able to confront the problem in a healthier way is to be able to not stay in the moment. If you're facing a problem, if you're facing a very stressful, sad situation, and you remind yourself that you've lived through a very sad situation already, you've survived it, and you ask yourself, okay, how did I survive it last time? I know that I've gotten through worse, so why shouldn't I be able to go through this time? Being able to relive the past can actually be so helpful to live the present with a different point of view. You can do this even by projecting yourself into the future. You can ask yourself, okay, how am I gonna feel about this in a week or in a year? Am I actually still gonna feel like this? What Ethan writes is, when you think about how you'll feel about a stressor sometime down the road, you realize that what you're going through, as bad as it may feel in the moment, it will eventually pass, giving you the boost you need to deal with the present. So far, Ethan talked about dealing with your thoughts and your emotions, using sensations, being flexible with your attention, and being able to change your perspective. All these tools are always there for us whenever we need them, and this is the beauty of them. But again, they rely on us. But there are tools outside that are as accessible as the one inside ourselves, and that we need to remember about. One huge shifter that can help us, that is actually external, is space, which relates a bit to senses. We exist in context. The spaces we inhabit and move through shape our emotional lives. I think this is sort of obvious, right? We feel different if we are by the sea, or if we are walking in the mountains, or if we are in a city with traffic. I think it's very personal where we feel best, but I do know that living in a city with a lot of chaos, traffic and noises wouldn't be for me. While maybe for some other people, being in a quiet environment with no noises, no, parties, could be depressing. So we need to think, am I in the right space for myself right now? So what Ethan tells us is that we must consider how the physical spaces that we occupy could be either helping us manage our emotions or getting in the way of managing them. And not all of us can just move into a different country or go from the city to, living in the mountains. But we can also just change a bit our environment. You need to ask yourself, what is getting in the way of achieving my goals and feel better and I can get rid of? For example, having a TV in your bedroom is working against your desire for better sleep, or the lack of storage in your basement and the clutter frustrates and distracts you every time you go down the stairs to work out. When we edit our spaces to remove temptations, distractions, desires, we're short-circuiting the entire cascade of our emotional track. Okay, so we had a little interruption because my camera died. Fairly, I just filmed like an hour. Hopefully the edited video will be a bit shorter than that. Anyway, moving on to the next shifter that Ethan Kross talks about. Well, he starts by saying this: emotions are like a virus. They can really quickly spread. There is a term called emotional contagion that refers to how we can easily catch a feeling from others. Research indicates that catching feelings like pollo. Research shows us that catching feelings can influence how we feel about the work we're doing, our commitment and satisfaction, our ability to empathize, our susceptibility to burnout. Emotional contagion shapes how we handle conflict, how we coordinate with other members of our group, whether it's at work or in the family. We tend to think that our emotions are private experiences, but emotional contagion tells us that they are not. We are deeply social species, and therefore our emotions are deeply social. The thing is, we turn to other people to talk about our problems and to get a help from them, but we talk to them in a very specific way. What we talk about, how we talk about it, has the potential to shift how we feel. What Ethan then talks about is how important it is to find the right people to talk to when we need to change our perspective about a topic and when we need to talk about a problem. And as I think this is one of the most important topics that I read in this book, because I'm a strong believer that talking with the right people can fully change the story that we tell ourselves and can fully change how we feel about a problem. I really wanna share this topic with you guys, and I'm gonna say this first. I suggested many times to people to talk about their issue or their problem with somebody else to get a different perspective. And what I would hear back, they just agree with me. What you said just doesn't make sense. But the thing is, maybe they didn't talk with the right people, or maybe they didn't express the things in the right way. If we wanna actually get help from someone and get proper emotional support, be helped to see things from a different perspective, which is what we're talking about here, we need to turn to other people in the proper way, and we need to turn to the right people. So this is what Ethan says. Most of the conversations people have with others about their emotions take form of them rehashing their feelings. This reflects the fact that many people think that getting good support begins and ends with spilling our guts to someone who will listen. I think you can all remember a time in which you had an issue, you just turned to a friend and just talked about this issue and just, got from the friend, oh, I agree with you, oh yeah, this person is an asshole, oh yeah, you're really facing a huge issue. This is not emotional support. This is not gonna help us. Too much time spent on rehashing a problem is called venting or co-ruminating, and it can make things worse. It's the well-meaning friend who is excessively validating of your point of view, digging you deeper into the very outlook that is making you unhappy. And it's the friend who asks you probing questions, digging for every detail, and in doing so causes you to relieve the emotions that have you worked up in the first place. All that venting and co-ruminating can be good for the friendship and for the relationship with that person. But here we're talking about solving a problem. If all you do in a conversation is just venting and co-ruminating, this can cause the wounds you're talking about to fester instead of heal. So how do we talk about a problem with someone in a way that helps us actually change our perspective? Very often when we're facing a problem, we're stuck in our tunnel, in our vision, that problem can be seen just from that point of view. People can help us shift our perspective, but we need to talk to them in the proper way, and we need to talk to the right people. So who are the right people, and how can you be the right person for someone that is coming to you with a problem? You need to let the person get it out first before you can help them think about the problem differently. The more intense the emotion, the more time it will likely take before the person is receptive to having their perspective broadened. When people are upset, they want to feel heard, understood and validated, and that's essential. But if you only do that as a friend, colleague or loved one, you are missing an important piece of the puzzle. A healthy perspective shift happens only if you add in the cognitive support as well. You help the other person work through the situation instead of just commiserating. The key is to both empathize and help. So when you are the one in the emotional advisor role, start off with listening, empathizing, validating, and normalizing. Key sentences are, "Tell me more about that. That sounds hard. What do you think about that? I'm not surprised you feel this way." When you see your opening, start to gently zoom out and see how they respond to a different perspective. If you're unsure, just ask. Say, "I have a thought on this, are you okay to hear it?" Because helping the person zooming out and get a different perspective is what we're actually there for, to help the person properly. When you are the one who needs the emotional support, know whom to go. Not everybody can empathize with us and actually then help us by being a good advisor. What Ethan Kross stresses out, and I think this is so important, is that we really need to think carefully about who we go to search for help. And he writes something that actually makes this so clear. Successful businesses spend a lot of time thinking about who sits on their own advisory boards. So should you. Okay, I don't know how long this video is gonna be, but I guess it's gonna be very long, so I'm gonna cut it here because otherwise I could talk for another couple of hours to this camera and therefore to you guys, and I think that would become a bit too much. But I do hope that these tools that I read in this book and that I decided to share with you are gonna be helpful for you. I truly hope so, because I'm a strong believer in the fact that a lot of violence in this world comes from the fact that we're not able to regulate our emotions. Plus, I really know what it's like to be unable to deal with negative emotions and negative thoughts. I do know what it's like to feel like wanting to die because your negative emotions have taken such a huge part of your life. That's why I made this video. That's why I talked to this camera for so long. So I do hope it will be of great help to you guys. Let me know if you liked it. Let me know if you found this useful, and let me know if you read this book, what you think about it. Okay, enough for the talk today. Bye, Fred.
Love.